Mr. Bobulinski, do you know who Elections LLC is? Yeah.
Mac. Well, it's not a who.
Okay, well, do you know what it is? So at this point in time, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a document indicating that the law firm representing Tony Bobulinski was paid $10,000 as recently as January of this year by the Save America PAC, which you may recognize as Donald Trump's PAC.
Welcome to Liberty, Watchtower, your front row seat to the pulse of American politics. Here, we cut through the noise to bring you sharp, timely updates, in-depth analysis, and bold commentary on the issues shaping the nation. Whether it's breaking news from Capitol Hill or grassroots movements making waves across the country, Liberty Watchtower keeps you informed, engaged, and ready to think critically. Subscribe and stay tuned. Freedom starts with awareness. Now, let's dive in. In recent years, the United States Congress has become a central stage for highly partisan and often theatrical political confrontations, particularly during high-stakes investigations and impeachment inquiries. One such episode played out in a heated congressional hearing where lawmakers questioned key witnesses involved in controversial matters tied to both the Trump and Biden administrations. The hearing focused on a web of allegations that have dominated American political discourse: corruption, foreign interference, and the credibility of witnesses aligned with either major party. This particular hearing, likely convened by the House Oversight Committee or Judiciary Committee, centers on allegations involving President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and purported business dealings overseas, specifically in Ukraine and China.
Now recognize Ms. Crockett for 1 minute, or 5 minutes.
1 minute. All right. First of all, Mr. Bobulinski, do you know who Elections LLC is? Yeah.
Mac. Well, it's not a who.
Okay, well, do you know what it is?
Yes, it's a LLC.
Okay, and is it the LLC that your attorney works for?
I believe so, yes.
You believe so, okay. So at this point in time, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a document indicating that the law firm representing Tony Bobulinski was paid $10,000 as recently as January of this year by the Save America PAC, which you may recognize as Donald Trump's PAC.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, so far in this hearing, it has felt like the worst episode of The Apprentice. I'm sure you're familiar with that show. It seems like my colleagues and maybe you and some others are trying to become the next vice president of the United States of America. You're auditioning or something like that because, Mr. Bobulinski, I know that you take exception to the fact that your credibility has been called into question over and over. But when someone comes to testify under oath, whether it's before this committee, behind closed doors, or in person, then we have to evaluate someone's credibility. And sir, I definitely have always had issues with your credibility, as I know that you are very well aware of. So let me remind you of what happened behind closed doors.
Well, you should ask O'Connor about my credibility.
I haven't asked you a question. Okay?
You are?
When I haven't. So when I ask you a question, that's when you answer. Otherwise, I'm talking. So,
excuse me?
With my time, because it's my time, I want to be clear that when we were behind closed doors, you called a number of people liars. You called the Wall Street Journal liars. You called Cassidy Hutchinson a liar. You called the FBI a liar. You called Rob Walker a liar. You called James Gilliar a liar. You called Hunter Biden a liar. You called Jim Biden a liar. And just today, you added to your list, you called my colleague, Congressman Mr. Goldman, a liar as well. It seems like, according to you, the only person that's telling the truth is you and everyone else is lying. But I want to move on to something else.
Is that a question?
It's not a question.
Oh, okay.
You'll know when I ask you a question, I promise.
Thank you.
So,
The Republican-led committee has sought to investigate whether then Vice President Biden had any improper involvement or knowledge of these dealings. In response, Democratic lawmakers have pushed back, alleging that the inquiry itself is a politically motivated effort to smear the president ahead of upcoming elections. Among those testifying is Tony Bobulinski, a former business associate of Hunter Biden, who has previously made public claims regarding the Biden family's business ventures. Bobulinski's testimony, while pivotal to the committee's Republican members, has been met with skepticism from Democrats, who question his credibility and impartiality, particularly as revelations emerge about the legal and financial support he receives from political allies of former President Donald Trump. Also testifying is Lev Parnas, a former associate of Rudy Giuliani, Trump's personal attorney. Parnas, who was convicted of campaign finance violations and other crimes, now claims to be speaking out in an effort to reveal the truth behind what he describes as a disinformation campaign orchestrated by Giuliani and others. His testimony directly challenges the Republican narrative, asserting that much of the evidence being cited to implicate the Bidens, including the now infamous FD 1023 form, has already been debunked. In this high-tension environment, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, DTX, takes the floor with pointed questions and a powerful critique. Her remarks blend sharp legal inquiry with biting political commentary. She challenges Bobulinski's sweeping accusations, highlighting the irony that nearly every individual he disagrees with is labeled a liar from mainstream journalists and political figures to federal investigators. Crockett also underscores the hypocrisy in Republican witness selection, drawing attention to the fact that one of their key witnesses is currently in prison, while another has ties to a PSC associated with Donald Trump. Furthermore, Crockett makes a broader point about political theater, suggesting that the hearing has less to do with uncovering truth and more to do with positioning that some of her Republican colleagues may be using the moment to audition for higher office, possibly even as a running mate for Trump in a future election. As the hearing unfolds, it becomes clear that the stakes are far greater than a single case of misconduct or misrepresentation. At its core, the hearing exposes the deep mistrust between political parties, the fragile nature of credibility in the age of hyperpartisanship, and the difficulty of discerning truth in a climate saturated by accusations, media spin, and conflicting interests.
The other thing that I want to talk about is the fact that my colleague from the other side of the aisle talked about the company that we keep. And she wanted to go through a list of people that she felt like were bad company, because right now the majority has been relying upon the testimony of someone who's currently sitting in federal prison. And we know that your company is the company of somebody who's been found liable of fraud, as well as defamation, as well as sexual assault, and for whatever reason can't pay his bills at this point in time. But I'm going to ask Mr. Parnas, so this is a question to him. Are you aware if Trump had any associates that have been found guilty of anything?
Yes, lots of them.
Lots of them.
Me included.
You included. Okay, so when you were called here to testify, you weren't called here to testify for any other reason than to tell the truth. Is that correct?
Yes, Congresswoman.
Now, we started this whole sham off because of the 1023, and that was debunked by you, was it not?
Yes, Congresswoman.
Way before we started this impeachment inquiry. And you mentioned a number of times this guy by the name of Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
Now, you know, everybody is so stressed about the fact that Hunter ain't here today. But, you know, Hunter came and testified behind closed doors for over 6 hours. And every single one of them, they weren't limited to 5 minutes. They could ask whatever they wanted to. And there's a full transcript of his testimony. So I don't know what else they wanted to do besides the fact that they wanted to put on a show. But let me tell you something. This whole thing is based upon something that Giuliani came up with.
Yes.
And we tried to subpoena him that's what I remember. If anybody else remembers, we asked, we said, hey, we should subpoena Giuliani. But, you know, kind of like when we were trying to get his cell phone, they shut it down, right? Like, they don't want the facts. But you would agree with me that considering the fact that you were working under Rudy Giuliani at the time that you went over to Ukraine, that he has maybe some valuable information that he could offer this committee as to whether or not there's anything that we should be investigating in the first place.
Absolutely, Congresswoman. I wish that this committee would subpoena Rudy Giuliani, put him under oath alongside me to get to the bottom of the truth of what actually happened in Ukraine and to the manipulation that Trump and Giuliani and the team went to do.
I agree with you, but somehow it doesn't look like we're going to get there, and I thank you for your time. With that, I'll yield.
Time's expired. Chair now recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Galanis, on May 9th, 2014, you received an email from Devin Archer confirming